Hi everyone, this is our first day of reading Harrison Bergeron. I am, like I said, super excited about this short story. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Same setup as normal. I'll talk about some things, and um, that'll be it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The year was 2081, and everybody was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law, they were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution and to the unceasing vigilance of agents of the United States Handicapper General. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, still drove people crazy by not being springtime, and it was in that clammy month that the handicapper general men took George and Hazel Bergen's 14-year-old son Harrison away. It was tragic, all right, but George and Hazel couldn't think about it very hard. Hazel had a perfectly average intelligence, which meant she couldn't think about anything except in short bursts. And George, while his intelligence was above normal, had a little mental handicap radio in his ear. He was required by law to wear it at all times. It was tuned to a government transmitter. Every 2 seconds or so, the transmitter would send out some sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. George and Hazel were watching television. There were tears on Hazel's cheeks, but she'd forgotten, for the moment, what they were about. On the television screen were ballerinas. A buzzer sounded in George's head. His thoughts fled in a panic, like bandits from a burglar alarm. "That was a real pretty dance, that dance they just did," said Hazel. "Huh?" said George. "That dance. It was nice," said Hazel. "Yep," said George. He tried to think a little bit about the ballerinas. They weren't really very good, no better than anybody else would have been anyway. They were burdened with sash weights and bags of birdshot, and their faces were masked so that no one seeing a free and graceful gesture or a pretty face would feel like something a cat drug in. George was toying with the vague notion that maybe dancers shouldn't be handicapped, but he didn't get very far with it before another noise in his ear radio scattered his thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and stop there for a second. So obviously we are set in the future. Remember, on Tuesday, we talked about the dystopian society and how dystopias are usually set in the future. There was some kind of breakdown of life as we know it, and now the new government is trying to make things better, but it's not working, right? And so, as it says in the very beginning, we're in 2081, and everybody is finally equal. And we said, in this instance, that being equal means that you are on the same level as everybody else. You are not better or worse than the person next to you, and they are not better or worse than you. Everybody's on the same exact level. And the way that they make sure that this is possible is through the handicapper general. And for those of you, I'm sure you've heard of the word handicap before, and usually a handicap means some kind of disability or some kind of hindrance or impediment, both of which are vocab words, but some kind of obstacle that makes whatever a person is trying to achieve more difficult. But in this case, the handicaps are to put everybody on the same level. So just like the short story said, his intelligence was way above average, so he has a radio in his ear that sends a frequency every couple of minutes to scatter his thoughts so that he can't think for very long, just like his wife Hazel, who naturally can't do it anyway. And then we also get some information about the ballerinas. They can't dance any better or worse than anybody else, and to make sure that they can't be good dancers or the best dancers, they have really heavy weights on their bodies and big bags full of birdshot, which are like, I don't know if any of you are hunters, but birdshot is what they put in the shell casings for hunting, and they're just little round balls that shoot the birds and put them down when you're hunting. So just think of a big bag of that weighing down on you. And if they have pretty faces, they have to have a mask to cover their face so that nobody can be envious, again, another vocab word, or jealous of how that person looks. Sorry, I needed a drink of water. So this is the world that we're living in, right? So already, within the first couple of paragraphs, we've seen multiple elements of the dystopian novel. Remember, we went over those on Tuesday. So we said personal choice and individuality are taken away. We've already seen that, right? Nobody is better or worse than the person next to them. And if you are stronger or faster or smarter or prettier, then you will have a handicap given to you that you have to wear by law to make sure that you follow the rules, or to make sure that you don't stand out, right? That you're not better, that you fit in with everybody else. So that also would fall under conformity, right? Just given what George and Hazel have said so far, obviously they don't, first of all, they can't really think too hard about, whether this is right or wrong, but also they wouldn't anyway, right? So they're conforming to the new laws that are put in place. And the ballerinas are too, right? None of them are really trying to stand out on TV while they're dancing. So we've got conformity, we've got loss of personal choice, we have government surveillance, right? So we have, and to the unceasing vigilance of the agents of the United States Handicapper General. So remember, vigilance is watching and observing something or someone, and this is exactly what's happening here, right? The government is watching the people to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. So already we've got at least 3 elements of a dystopian novel just in the first couple of minutes of reading. So let's go ahead and continue. George winced. So did 2 out of the 8 ballerinas. Hazel saw him wince. Having no mental handicap herself, she had to ask George what the latest sound had been. It sounded like somebody hitting a milk bottle with a ball-peen hammer, said George. I'd think it would be real interesting hearing all the different sounds, said Hazel, a little envious. All the things they think up. Said George. Only if I was handicapper general. You know what I would do? Said Hazel. Hazel, as a matter of fact, bore a strong resemblance to the handicapper general, a woman named Diane Moon Glampers. If I was Diane Moon Glamper, said Hazel, I'd have chimes on Sunday, just chimes. Kind of in honor of religion. I could think, if it was just chimes, said George. Well, maybe make 'em real loud, said Hazel. I think I'd make a good handicapper general. Good as anybody else, said George. Who knows, better than I do what normal is, said Hazel. Right, said George. He began to think, glimmering, about his abnormal son who was in jail, about Harrison. But a 21-gun salute in his head stopped that. Boy, said Hazel, that was a doozy, wasn't it? It was such a doozy that George was white and trembling, and tears stood in the rim of his eyes. 2 of the 8 ballerinas had collapsed to the studio floor, were holding their temples. All of a sudden you look so tired, said Hazel. Why don't you stretch out on the sofa, so's you can rest your handicap bag on the pillows, honey bunch? She was referring to the 47 pounds of birdshot in a canvas bag, which was padlocked around George's neck. Go on and rest the bag for a little while, she said. I don't care if you're not equal to me for a while. George weighed the bag with his hands. I don't mind it, he said. I don't notice it anymore. It's just a part of me. Okay, so, again, we see this idea of, you're not better than me, right? We're the same, and obviously, if you think about it, these people are still set apart, right? Everybody knows the reason that they have these handicaps is because they are stronger, smarter, faster, prettier, whatever, right, compared to the rest of these people. But for some reason, they believe that, having these handicaps, the weights, the masks, the really terrible sounds, obviously will prevent those people from using those advantages um, over other people, and that's the whole point of them, right? And it's kind of funny because Hazel's a little jealous of George. She wants to have the handicap of the noises in her ears, but obviously it takes a really big toll on George as well. So obviously it's doing its job. We keep getting reference to Harrison, and remember, Harrison Bergeron is the title of the story. That is the one of the characters, and he's going to be our quote-unquote hero. And we're going to see how he plays out in the story. But he was taken away when he was 14 from his parents and has been in jail ever since. And his parents can't think about him too much. One, because Hazel can't really hold thoughts for that long. And two, because George, like, the handicap prevents him from doing that. So, just keep Harrison in mind because he'll be important later on. Let's see. Sorry guys, it's middle of the day recording, just ignore the bell. Let's see. I lost my place, I'm sorry. You've been so tired lately, kind of wore out, said Hazel. If there was just some way we could make a little hole in the bottom of the bag and just take out a few of them lead balls, just a few. 2 years in prison and $2,000 fine for every ball I took out, said George. I don't call that a bargain. If you could just take out a few when you came home from work, said Hazel. I mean, you don't compete with anybody around here, you just sit around. If I tried to get away with it, said George, then other people would get away with it, and pretty soon we'd be right back to the Dark Ages with everybody competing against everybody else. I'd hate it, said Hazel. There you are, said George. The minute people start cheating on laws, what do you think happens to society? All right, let's stop there for today because we get, again, a lot of information, right? Just in those couple of sentences and a lot in the dialogue, too. So we find out that these people that have the handicaps cannot tamper with them or take them off or do anything because they'll go to jail and they'll be fined however much money for those handicaps to be removed, right? And George makes the comment, too, that, you know, if he does it, then other people are going to do it, and then we're right back to where we started. And he called it the Dark Ages, right? Which I guess would be referring to now. So I kind of want you to think about that for a second. With us competing with each other, with the way the world is right now, are these the Dark Ages? Is there any good coming out of not being equal, having people that are smarter than you, or prettier than you, or quicker, or faster, or stronger than you? Is there benefit to that, or is it all just, you know, something you can't control, and it is what it is, and it's not fair. Life isn't fair, and it doesn't do anybody any good. And that's the question I want to leave you with. Is it a good thing that people are different, or should we do something so far that what we've seen with the handicaps and have people, you know, who are better or stronger or faster or prettier have those handicaps so they're on the same level with you? What would that do for everybody? Okay, I will meet you all for Zoom. We will continue reading tomorrow. We will probably finish reading at least by Friday or Monday. This one's not going to take very long, obviously. But I'm hoping to do some fun activities or at least have some good conversation with you all about the story and life in general. So, have a wonderful day. I will see you all later. And yes, thank you.